evening and welcome to our viewers here at Globespan 24x7 as we present tonight December 7th Monday night program. Tonight we want to thank again Mr. Noir Singh for making this platform available and of course for Devin for being our technical specialist. To all our viewers out there, we want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. Tonight we are very honored to have with us, and indeed a privilege, to have the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs who will be with us throughout this session. So Minister, welcome to the program tonight.
Well, thank you so much, and good evening to all your viewers.
And also we have with me Dr. Rose, who is no stranger to us. Dr. Rose, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Charles.
All right, Minister, let's get straight into it. You know, I honestly believe that every Guyanese in our homeland and those of us who live in the diaspora have a pretty good idea of what the problem in Guyana in respect to our security sector really is. So we want to have some clarity tonight, if you don't mind, and we'll respectfully ask you some questions, and hopefully we can get some concrete answers. But before we tread into that, Minister, would you like to take this opportunity to give us a very candid view and assessment of the state of the security sector in Guyana?
Well, I thought I heard you say that every Guyanese knows what the problem is. So I'm not sure specifically what that meant, if there is a particular problem that encompasses the wide gamut of the security sector. I would briefly say that we are in an extremely precarious situation. We have come out of a period where, to a great extent, significant sections of our security operatives were compromised. And this relates particularly to the period since the no confidence vote and the so-called impasse. I would be perhaps more candid by saying the hostage-taking situation we were in, relating to the situation after the March 2nd elections, which led to a recount and several challenges at various courts, including the CCJ. What has happened over the period is basically there has been malaise, there has been partisanship in areas which are required to be non-partisan and to be professional. The overall effect overlapped with the COVID-19 pandemic, the global pandemic, is that the situation has deteriorated to a point where, for me, like people like myself who have been in government at various stages and looking at the numbers too, we have a feeling of deja vu, of starting all over again, of having to do things which should have been done a long time ago, of having to do things which could have been done in the intervening 5-year period of the previous administration, things which should have been done, whether infrastructural or in terms of the development of people or in relation to undertakings of the various agencies with respect to the responsibilities for proper nation building and for security. So some of us would think that we are in an almost indescribable, unforgiving situation, but I have taken the view that this is where we are. It's generally a bad situation, but it couldn't get any worse, and it would not be allowed to get any worse. and that all the steps we have to take to improve will have to be taken by ourselves. And that at the end of the day, we have to hand over a better situation to our people and to our next generation. That is our responsibility, that is our task. And those who otherwise may want to make fun of the situation or have fun can do so, but we are buckling down to the task.
Thank you, Minister.
The situation of starting over, of being in a difficult situation, is that which we acknowledge, but perhaps it's the best situation as a starting point. Unfortunately so, but vicariously so, but it's perhaps the best situation to start again from.
Thank you, Minister, and I'm glad you mentioned quite a bit there in your assessment of the current situation in Guyana. You did mention what happened in the period from election to, even from the no confidence vote to the elections, and then the swearing in of the finale administration. You yourself were a victim of the police force during that time, as we all saw on television how you were treated. But that's a different story. My question, Minister, as you know, Guyanese love to come home during the festive season, whether it's Pagua, whether it's Christmas, whether it's Easter, whether it's matrimony, and all those different activities. We like to come home. But Minister, Guyanese are also very fed up with the excuses given by the previous administration and to a certain extent your administration respect to the crime situation. What policy changes do you envisage, and what specific steps you will initiate to ensure the safety of Guyanese?
Well, let me say I am not here to make any excuses. I am focusing on what needs to be done, and I could only point out the facts. I'm happy, of course, and we would all want the Guyanese to come home. Home is the best place to be. But we are not making any excuses. There are no excuses to be made. We have a situation, we are quite aware, where there has been a deterioration generally of the law and order situation. We have had a greater compromising, as it were, of the policing situation, both at the level of the professional police service, but also at the level of the community policing groups, which we've just relaunched. And I have to say that the community policing groups, which is supposed to be the interforce between the police and the communities, was not activated practically for 5 years. And we've had a situation where we return to the communities being policed, and we know that in many instances where you have a police force which is lacking in diversity, that on the one hand, they perhaps appear to be or act out as being an predatory or an occupying force in some communities, and in other communities for which they have greater engagement otherwise, the relationships become incestuous, and also it becomes, because of that, it becomes entangled in all kinds of issues which do not promote professionalism. So, as a whole, we are re-establishing the architecture and the things which would make for the proper service and protection of the population, for the improvement in law and order, for the development of what I've been saying is a new police force, speaking of the police force itself. I've said that the police have to move away from positions where they are viewed with suspicion by the general population of all ethnicities and kinds in Guyana, and where it appears that the results of the police at all levels, either on the ground in the stations or at the level of the magistracies in putting cases forward, can be very arbitrary, and that we have to move away from a position where we are unprofessional, brutalizing, and not advancing the cause of service and protection for the population. I've spoken generally, and I've made a call to the populace to record by audio and video every engagement with the police. And that in the police stations, we intend to put in cameras where the engagement between the police and the public, whether that person representing the public is a victim or a perpetrator, that engagement is recorded. So we move from a standpoint of greater respect, and we move from a standpoint of professional service to the population. I have said for the ministry as a whole, and both for the police and the prison particularly, that we have to identify at each level of the organizations, and we have to drive an improvement program and culture. I keep saying we should have a 10-point improvement program, which is as you achieve one or the other, you add another one to keep 10 going in an iterative way, so that we have a consistent drive towards better service and protection to achieve professionalism in the police service and the prison service, the fire service, and in the ministry itself. I think if we focus on those issues, other than re-establishing the vehicles, the mechanisms, and the results which we had to improve, and I could really only speak to the time that Clement Rohe was Minister of Home Affairs, the effort which was made to bring about improvements in the police forces. Rohe also did establish what, and I was a member on it, a National Commission on Law and Order, which had bipartisan representation and representation from the civil society and from the business and other interests. And that National Commission of Law and Order did not meet in the entire 5 years of the APNU AFC tenure in office. I will also reestablish that National Commission of Law and Order. And the moribund agencies that we see around us at this time will be re-energized. So, in a nutshell, that is our focus. Let me say that in respect of the prison service, which has been a traumatic experience in seeing the way our inmates are housed and treated and so on, we are embarking on a situation to bring back the prison service to one that is rehabilitative.
Okay.
That when I went to the Lusignan prison a few days after becoming minister, and I looked at the conditions where men were lying on mattresses on the ground within 1 foot of each other, and others slung up in hammocks over them. We do not want those inhumane conditions existed. The prison system has to be made into one which is not a brutalizing place to experience.
Minister, we'll want to address the prison a little bit later on in the program, if you don't mind. But before I ask Dr. Rose to come on, one question you mentioned, one possible solution was that there will be cameras in the police station. Who will be monitoring these cameras?
The cameras will, of course, record the engagement between the police and the citizens. The recordings will be made and will be viewed by the police commanders and also by persons within the ministry. When charges are made, when complaints are made with respect to issues. I also said that as a general rule, that persons who come into contact with the police on the road or in the stations to record audio and video of that engagement. So it does not only have to be the recording in the station itself, but the recordings that people can make on the fly as they engage. And we've had some of those recordings already, and it is bearing fruit. Those recordings are bearing fruit.
Thank you, Minister. Dr. Rose?
Once again, good evening to all our listeners, and thank you, Minister Benn, for coming on. This is Globespan. Minister Benn, I want to take your thoughts elsewhere before I get to the nitty-gritty of the questions. You have been in politics a very long time. Your father has been one of the founding members of the PEP, or among the founding members of the PEP. Can you tell the nation or tell our listeners what it was like with the relationship between your father and the late Dr. Chedi Jagan, and you and Dr. Chedi Jagan, and now all the different governments the different presidents you have served, and especially during the time when your father broke away from the PEP and formed his own party?
Well, I'm not sure where to start to answer that question. That could take.
Make it as short as possible.
Well, I would say that the engagement that my parents had, not simply my father, had with the PPP was, in my view, a sterling engagement for the winning of freedom for Guyana, for the fighting for democracy and the reestablishment of democracy in Guyana, and that our support and our engagement has always been for progressive forces in the country. Our engagement has always been that one, and even while it is said that there was a dissonance or a disengagement between Brindley Benn and the PPP for a number of years, when it was thought that additional pressure had to be brought on the PNC regime, that you had to adopt various forms of struggle, and that you had to have other pressure groups, that it had to be done. And suffice it to say that a Benn has never crossed the floor. A Benn has never crossed the floor onto the side of those who again have been identified as repressive in our political culture and experience, and who have always failed in their duty to develop Guyana for all Guyanese. And that's as much as I would say at this time. Okay.
As I said, you have been in politics a very long time, and you have seen the PNC in office for 28 years. You have seen the PEP in office for the last 23 years. In your assessment, can you tell us the difference or differences between the PEP and the PNC?
Well, I would hope that you could tell us. I don't know that I, as any Guyanese at my level, would necessarily have to tell um, other Guyanese and people like yourself, particularly, what the answer should be. You could tell us. We could debate it if it's not what you want. I think again, the there's a difference between progress and authoritarianism and backwardness and an abandonment of the responsibility to develop the country for all Guyanese. That's the difference between the two. The PPP and PPPC have always been unparalleled, and I repeat, unparalleled in struggling to develop Guyana. And in spite of all the attacks, in spite of all the difficulties presented, in spite of all the sacrifices, and we could talk of those sacrifices personally, but we don't want to dwell on ourselves, that we have won through. And even when people were forced into positions or took the positions perhaps that we should not have been in government at a particular time, the evidence is there on the ground with respect to what the difference is between the PPP and the PPPC and the PNC or the AP and UAFC. It's on the ground. It has been experienced in the lives of each and every Guyanese, even those who have not been willing to admit what the truth and facts of the matter are. I don't think I need to come on this program and try to sound as a partisan. I'm not aware that I've been in politics, as it were, for a long time. I have been a supporter of the democratic forces, of the progressive forces. I've worked as a professional all over my country, as a geologist, and as a professional expert. And I've come into politics to help to continue the development of our country.
Okay, thanks for that. Now, let me get to the hardcore questions. The Georgetown Prison was built by the British in the 1880s. They housed 150 people. At times, it had almost 1,000 plus people, prisoners in there. And to many Guyanese living in the city, it has become an eyesore to be in the central location where it is right now. Would you say here and now that your government will move the prison from there and put it at a different location and use that space for some other form of development?
No, personally, I disagree with the notion in itself. There are many other prisons which are in central locations of cities, particularly as it relates to prisoners on remand and who should have ready access to the courts in terms of logistics for their issues. I'm sure I don't have to tell you wherever you are that you can go in whatever city you are and you will find a prison in the city or nearby the city. The difficulty we have in respect of the Georgetown Prison itself with respect to your suggestion is that we have inherited programs and works relating to the building of new prisons, new prison buildings, both in Georgetown and at Mazaruni, for which the materials to be put in, this is cells, steel cells, are already here. We inherited that. And the foundations were already and are already on the ground in respect of putting up those works. So the very notion of itself in not having a prison in the center of a city, I wouldn't necessarily agree with you, given the example in first world countries. But our hands are tied in respect of the monies which have already been invested in foundations and erections at Georgetown particularly. We could, I don't know if the suggestion is that we should simply walk away from 3 million US or whatever dollars worth in foundations and other erection works now at Georgetown Prison. But there's no decision in on that at the moment. But the fact of the matter is the prison cells are being erected now, are put in place now. The foundations are on the ground for several months. And we have to go ahead with at least a place which would handle remand and other issues, and perhaps a new headquarters for the prison system itself at the location.
Okay, thanks. Now, I have many questions for the police, but let me turn to one question. Whenever there's an accident in Guyana, the police is supposed to determine which driver is wrong and which driver is right. But the police tend to charge both drivers. And first of all, it's an accident. Police are not supposed to charge anybody. Insurance companies are supposed to work out the differences and pay the person who is right or fix the person's car. But why is the police normally charge both drivers? It has been happening constantly in Guyana. They charge both drivers in an accident.
Well, I'm not aware of that particular issue. I am not aware of that particular issue. As far as I'm aware, that persons are charged based on the merits of the incident. If both persons, I expect, are contributed in one way or the other to the accident, they could be charged. And then the courts will sort out the matter. So I don't know if you're speaking from a particular personal experience or what it is, but being aware of accidents on the road and looking at investigations, there's always one person who may be the prime instigator or the one who caused it as such. So I can't speak to that issue particularly because I am not aware of the assertion you're making that they always charge both persons.
But Mr. Minister, let me just follow up here. But it's an accident. Why charge people for an accident? They have insurance. The insurance is supposed to work out the details and contribute to the person who is at fault, who is in the right.
I'm not sure that you're couching your question. If it is an issue you're looking at for law reform or something, we could look at it if there's something better. But if the law has issues of dangerous driving, causing death by dangerous driving, you can run into a traffic light stanchion and you could be charged for that. There's no other perpetrator in respect of your actions. If you run into and destroy the road furniture, you could be charged for that. There are laws for these things, and these things didn't come out of the air. So I'm a bit surprised that the question is being posed in this matter. It's something what is elementary. I would be very surprised that we in Guyana are doing something that is vastly different than that which is being done in other jurisdictions.
Minister, when we come back, and Dr. Rose, when we come back, we want to continue the discussion about the roads. We'll take a break now. We'll be back in shortly.
All From One Supplier is pleased to announce its online shipping for West Indian and American groceries. Order online at allfromonesupplier.com and with free shipping and deliveries to any part of the United States. Save time and energy to shop for all of your West Indian groceries from the safety of your home or office. We carry West Indian products like curry powders, meats and fish, dashing bush, pepper sauce, sodas, and your favorite snacks. All from One Supplier has it all. All from One Supplier fulfills and ships your order directly to you. So visit All from One Supplier today to start shopping, or call All from One Supplier at 718-551-3292 to handle all of your West Indian grocery needs. That's All from One Supplier, 718-551-3292. Free shipping, free deliveries, or curbside pickup from allfromOneSupplier.com. Travelspan is pleased to announce that the airport in Guyana is now open. There are flights from New York and Miami non-stop to Guyana. Call Travelspan for all your travel needs to Guyana or for your vacation to Mexico or Punta Cana. Call 718-845-0437. That's 718-845-0437. Flights are now on sale to Guyana and vacation packages are now on sale to Mexico and Punta Cana. Call 718-845-0437. Logistics International, based in Trinidad with representatives in Guyana, is pleased to announce its shipping services from Trinidad to Guyana. Logistics provides shipping services and has experienced personnel to handle all of your shipping needs from Trinidad to Guyana. Buy in Trinidad and let Logistics handle all of your shipping to Guyana, from small boxes to container sizes. Call Logistics in Trinidad at 1-868-336-8218 to handle all of your shipping needs, and they handle all sizes. Logistics International has been shipping for over 22 years to many Caribbean countries with reliability and dependability. Call 1-868-336-8218 in Trinidad. That's 1-868-336-8218. Or email at liclcargo@gmail.com.
Welcome back to our program. We want to thank all our viewers for staying with us, and of course the Honorable Minister of Home Affairs, the Honorable Robeson Benn. Minister, follow up with Dr. Rose's question is that it appears as though our road right now is a killing machine. I don't know if you're aware of it, but I know when I got my license in 1981, I believe. Even though I went through the classes, I went to the practical, I had to pay a bribe to the police to get my license issued. I believe, Minister, that a lot of people believe this too, a lot of licenses that are issued to our drivers, they don't attend classes, they don't know the rules of the road, they don't have no information about how to drive and in terms of what it means to have a driver's license. It's like giving a child a firearm to play with when you give someone who purchased their license through a bribe and then they go and drive on the streets. Minister, I know recently also, and one of your colleagues was saying that they want to have a different arrangement for different things within their ministry. Would you consider driver's license to be issued by a different department other than the police force, like it's done in some countries, and the police will have to implement the laws based on the driving of that person or drivers?
Well, I spoke before about the improvements in the policing and in the police architecture and in the personal integrity and effectiveness of the police. That is what I'm focusing on at the moment. There is some discussion, of course, which we have taken on the side with respect to bringing in greater civilian health in respect of government services generally, and with the CPG and other persons making civilians acting more in positions where they can support the work of the police service, police force. I tend to have a view on the corruption in the police force and the bribing, as you say, and I guess you were speaking as an honest briber of policemen. I am aware, and I recently went through the police training areas where there were many young people and a few older ones who were going through the system of being trained to get their driver's license. I think, of course, that there are situations where many people are very ready to bribe to get a favor done or whatever, and that we have situations where, as you suggested, people pay a bribe to get a driver's license or something. And at all levels of the operations, there is corruption. We have to reduce it. We have to identify those who are involved in it. We have to put systems in place to make sure that the monitoring internal within the police force and external to it is better, so that we can reduce the incidence of corruption. It's not unique to Guyana, but we are particularly bad at the moment. But what you mentioned in respect of civilian support or external to the police is something that we will consider and are considering in some aspects. It's not something that we will shut out, but the licensing aspect for motor vehicles is not the only important aspects that the police do. The police carry firearms, the police do other services, the police handle cases in the court and all those things. And many would say there's pervasive corruption. And I'm just now launching a public perception survey for the police force to be followed by the prison service and the fire service in respect of how the police are viewed by the public, and then for the police themselves to do their own self-assessment of their conditions of service and so on, so that we could bring about the overall issues of bringing improvements to the force and understanding the various characteristics and nuances of the difficulties we face. These are works in progress, but we have to start out here and now on the questions of improving integrity in the police force. Whether we do it as a civilian licensing agency for motor vehicle licenses, or whether it is done within the police forces themselves, there's a possibility that either one or the other could become areas where bribes could be offered and given and so on. So the personal integrity is important. The systems, nowadays the issues of computers and so on are very critical, and cameras and all those things. So every activity has to benefit as a result of starting out from the personal integrity and training and discipline of the people, whether they're police or civilians in the system. They are wholly civilian services in Guyana, serving the public, where corruption could be considered as pervasive as with the police force, perhaps. So I can only speak to what we can do here and now, but I'm not shutting out the consideration.
Minister, before Dr. Rose come on, I want to go back to one thing you mentioned before, that you're asking the citizen of Guyana to videotape or to put on, well, everybody's camera now, everybody's cell phone has a camera. But we have seen on social media, criminals on bicycles, on motorcycle, on cars, even walking, and they're robbing their fellow citizens. nothing we have seen in the courts that these people are arrested and charged. We have seen in Berbice when they had the big, the problem there in Berbice, and we'll come to that in a minute. Policemen are there, citizens are being attacked, and the police is doing nothing about it. I mean, will this continue, or are you going to put a stop to this, Minister?
Well, naturally, for the general issue, it can't be brought an instantaneous stop. Secondly, in respect of the issues of bicycle gangs or motorbike persons going around and robbing persons, the police are working at this, and we're having some successes. And you may not know that some of these persons have been arrested and brought in front of the courts, and firearms have been seized. So in spite of all of the signal things you mentioned, in terms of failures, there are also successes, and I would dare say that the successes are more than the failures, given to the fact that the police can't be everywhere and that not all crime is reported. With respect to the issue of the great difficulty we had in Region 5 with the unfortunate death of the young men, where they generated on 3 occasions, I think, to attacks on commuters and persons in the area from different groups. Records have been made. Both videos have been taken for persons to be charged on the warrant at some point in time while that investigation is still underway. And there are many ramifications to that investigation. In respect of the police inaction, plainly seen on videos, it is the commanders have been removed and persons have been removed and sanctioned elsewhere. And I maybe mentioned before that one of the issues is the lack of representative diversity in policing, which would have perhaps helped the situation much more. That familial or other issues would not have come into play at that point in time, but the professional requirement would have come into action in terms of preserving law and order. But that is one of the challenges we have, is to have better representation, better engagement, and also better communication with the population. And of course, to avoid the type of political incitement which occurred by 2 very senior political leaders of Guyana, one of them recently a president of Guyana, which propelled that situation. That the reticence and the sensibility and the dispassionate approach to the problem was not taken by certain personages, which led to the deterioration of the situation.
Thank you, Minister. Dr. Rose?
Yes, Minister Benn, as you know, in a number of countries, there is a justice system, one set of laws for the rich, one set of laws for the poor. Guyana, I think, has that same system. For example, when policemen go to the homes of the average person.
Guyana has no such system. If you're suggesting in the administration or the working out of things that we have one set of rules and another, we have one rules, which are the laws of Guyana.
Okay, but those laws are not being carried out fairly by the police officers. For example,
so there are those charges, and we'll work at it. But let me hear your example.
For example, if there's someone to be arrested in a poor in a poor neighborhood, the police will go there, barge in, break down the doors, tumble up the house, and arrest the person. And on top of that, at times beat the person. But when they go to arrest a rich person, they go with a warrant and they go there, not even handcuffing the rich person or chain their legs, but they go there and they're very respectful to the rich people. But the poor, they treat them as nobody. How can you stamp out that system or re-educate your police officers to let them know that they should not treat citizens of Guyana who got equal rights in that way?
Well, I could have two approaches to the question you've put. One is that you don't live in Guyana apparently, and you are not aware of what actually goes on. You don't have the observations I have with respect to police interaction on the streets with the populace and with persons who may have come in contact with the laws or suspected of things. On my very first engagement with the police and the other services, I spoke to those very issues. The brutalization of citizens, the beating of citizens, and the unnecessary shooting and so on, and mishandling and mistreatment. I've spoken to those issues, and maybe I'll get a video or something of that presentation to dispel any notions you may have that we're not attacking this problem. It is true that the approach could be different in many cases between persons in better standing in society and persons, more ordinary citizens. But this is not always the case. We have had two situations going where indeed many police are perhaps either fearful or fairly lenient with persons of all standing, not necessarily persons who are rich or well off or well-to-do. And where the police should attempt to manacle persons to take them to the station, they don't do so. They're fearful of doing so. And where the police, and I had to make a call out to the public, the persons not to attack the police, because some people have been taking it out on the police by physically attacking them in public, in the full public view, and this includes traffic policemen. Of course, it probably reflects a disdain, a hatred, a disrespect for the police for various reasons. But it seems to have come out of situations where people have a sense that the police may have been improperly used or their engagement has been improper, either before or at the same time. So, yes, there may be a broad brush in terms of your expression of the issue, but I think it's really more nuanced than you're suggesting. And if you take a walk around the markets and in the public spaces and the roads, you may see differences in the engagement. There are many, many good police, men and women. Many of them are trying to do a good job. Many of them are under stress and strain with respect to the job. And many of them are keenly conscious of the effect of the disreputable behavior of some policemen who bring the standing of the force to a low level. But I'm fairly confident, looking at young policemen and women and others who've been in the service for a while, that we have enough good people, more than enough good people to make an improvement.
Okay.
That's why I'm not going to give up on it.
Okay. Minister Benn, now, you know as well as I know and well as Guyanese know that crime has been increasing, as well as traffic accidents. This is a two-pronged question, and I'm asking you to give us a practical answers as much as possible. How do you intend to stamp out crime and reduce traffic accidents?
Well, first off, I'll give you the practical answer that I know I can't stamp out crime. Crime cannot be stamped out.
Or reduce it then?
Yes, let's agree that it can be significantly reduced, that its impacts on the society could be made negligible in one way or the other, that crime has modernized itself in many ways, the different aspects of crime that we are faced with nowadays, drugs and money laundering and other things using computers in respect of crime. So we'll work very hard at it, and I said we'll reduce it by gradually. It may take 3 years or so to bring about significant improvement in our police men and women and in the administration of in the administration of the ministry and its agencies. So there's no magic wand here, and I've not come here to stamp on anything. In respect of the rise in crime, and also too in respect of the traffic accidents, I've said that both things are related. One, to a reduction in the effective capacity of the police force. We have just gone out to acquire 50 new patrol vehicles for the police. Many of their vehicles were down. Many of the means they had for enhancing the work was not there or acted upon. So it's a work in progress, and I think I'm encouraged by the response both from the police force, many of their officers and ordinary ranks, and particularly too from many of the people working in the ministry, that I think we have a new energy developing. In relation to the traffic accidents, it appears as though, because I think we're at 129 or rather 130 deaths for the year, we've spoken, it appears that even though we have less vehicles on the road as a result of the COVID lockdown and restrictions, the roads are more open. People perhaps are speeding when they see the open roads, and they've gotten away from the restrictive conditions, that they're being less careful on the roads themselves. And we've spoken about particular issues because we know who's being killed. We've looked at the data, and they're motorcyclists, cyclists, and pedestrians. We're starting an initiative where I'm going to be, as a small gesture, give out helmets to the motorcyclists who don't have them, lights and highlighted vests to people who ride cyclists at nights, and small issues like that. And we're trying to recognize and reward those, like we just recognized and gave out a few plaques to the best minibus operators, drivers, because they in many ways define the culture. They, along with the taxi drivers, define the culture on the roads. So we have a poor safety culture, road safety culture. We are disdainful of each other. We are less courteous. And I think a lot of it has had to do, at the risk of sounding partisan again, of the careless, almost suicidal attitude we've had both to ourselves, disrespectful to ourselves and to each other, which happened since we had the no confidence vote. And the COVID has not helped it.
Okay.
Many of the crimes we see happening are vexatious crimes, responding to tantalizing or being a bit inebriated out of instantaneous anger and arguments. So we're working at these things, and I've said to our people again, I've said to our crime observatory, now that we have observed the crime, what are the resorts we have to do to bring about a change? I met again with them this morning, and that was the topic. I met with the police force and the persons looking at the traffic statistics, and I said, and I wrote a letter to the Commissioner of Police and pointed out the fact that it was at the weekends that people were being killed, and that it's between 6 and in the evenings and 12 midnight that people were being killed, and that those were the times when we had to have more policemen on the road and more efforts in respect of speeding and other issues. It's not perfect yet, but I think we'll get there.
Okay. Quickly, Mr. Benn, what's the size of the police force in terms of numbers? And is that number, whatever it is, adequate to control the crime rate and the traffic accidents?
No, just to say with the traffic accidents, it also relates to the question of restoring our traffic lights. I left as Minister of Public Works a complete traffic light system in the city and its environs. That system was degraded completely over the 5 years. Spares are not bought, and so we have a situation where most of the traffic lights in Georgetown are not working. We were building in new roads to take up the growth in the number of vehicles on the road. We were to build an oval bypass road to take off traffic. We had gotten the money for that from India. I think the government of India, President Ramatar, had gotten that money. The road was not built in 5 years, in 5-6 years. But I'd say active, we have about near 4,000 policemen in various forms. The number is not adequate from the point of view of specific training areas. The number is not adequate in respect of our geographical extent. It's not adequate in respect of the interfacing in some communities with respect to policing requirements. But the numbers are being looked at. But I think you would agree with me that it is simply not the question of numbers, but the quality of recruits, the effectiveness of those who are in their job, even with years of experience, and their training and their professional engagement.
Minister Benn, one quick question. Police salaries have been known to be very, very low. Do you intend to increase the salaries in the coming years, and by how much?
I think it's a rather silly question to tell me if I intend to increase it and by how much at this point in time. We've just come into the position. We're looking at the numbers. We're looking at improving their effectiveness. Salaries will be increased based on what we can afford for all services. Hopefully, if and when we get the money properly flowing in with respect to our natural resources income coming forward, that things will improve much better all around. But I think it's right sometimes to merely speak of salary. I've worked for many years in the government service, and I like to tell people who come into the service to forget about the salary and the money. If you come in to do the job and you have to learn and gain experience, you have to focus on the job. So I think too many of our young people are coming into service with a sense of entitlement. That the minute you come into the job, your first thing is to get whatever. And nothing is wrong with getting a nice motorbike or car or whatever just now. But if you look at the work that they're producing or their engagement with respect to that work, we're failing. So I think we have to set aside some expectations, set aside this sense of entitlement which many people come into these services with, and get people to focus on the job that they're expected to do.
Charles.
All right, Minister, when we come back, we'll continue discussion because we have a lot more to cover. And I know our time is getting shorter, but we thank you so much for being with us. And to our audience, we'll be back very shortly. Devin is not ready for us. Okay, so let's continue because Devin is not quite ready. Minister, by the time Devin is ready to take us to break, domestic violence is a major problem in Guyana. I believe that it's a matter not only for your ministry, but it's a collaboration between your ministry and the Ministry of Human Services and Social Security. Are there any specific steps that you are coordinating with your fellow minister to mitigate this problem? We know it's a really, really serious problem in Guyana.
It's a very difficult question, and yes, we are working with the Ministry of Human Services to properly chart or rechart the course with respect to domestic violence. We have to accept that we are wife beaters and stabbers and all those other things, that there is a lack of respect for women, generally, that there is a great deal of insecurity we see amongst men when they see women also in work, a woman who could carry a home, a professional woman. We feel challenged by those issues and we can't handle it because I guess we've come from the macho upbringing where the man is the head of the household, the breadwinner, and the be-all and end-all of social existence, even in what some people think that we have a matriarchal society. The problem has to be attacked at even from the level of the curricula in schools, also in respect of how we portray women, the language we use to women on the road, the language we use and we relate to in the songs that we listen to in the minibuses, and out there on the road when we have a party. We're disrespectful of women generally, and we accept it as a norm in our society based on the songs and language we use. And we have to acknowledge that for us as men in the society, and we also have to have women too more courageous in speaking up and out. But first off, it goes to we men to be better at it, to be better husbands and fathers, and to look to the champions, the persons who would advocate for improved women's rights and who would speak out in public about why there's this need for greater respect for women, because we are also the fathers of women, and our society will fail or will continue to fail if we can't treat our women any better. Minister Vindi Prasad is working with us. We've had meetings over the last 3 weeks, particularly on various aspects of domestic violence. I think she has a number of days of activism with respect to this issue with which we are participating. And the issues of the training of the police men and police women too, because sometimes it's not only the policemen who who are disdainful of women's issues at the police stations in respect of domestic violence, but sometimes it's also the police women who go along with that culture of of accepting that this is the way how a woman ought to be treated and that she should kowtow to the demands in whatever forms to the men, and this continues the depredations. So we all have a lot to learn, and we have a lot to do to change in terms of our attitude and behavior with respect to women, domestic violence, and related to children too. We're very bad at this situation at the moment.
Thank you, Minister. I'm glad you and Minister Vindy is working on that. Now Devin is ready. When we come back, we'll be out shortly. I'll be back after this break.
All From One Supplier is pleased to announce its online shipping for West Indian and American groceries. Order online at allfromonesupplier.com and with free shipping and deliveries to any part of the United States. Save time and energy to shop for all of your West Indian groceries from the safety of your home or office. We carry West Indian products like curry powders, meats and fish, dashing bush, pepper sauce, sodas, and your favorite snacks. All From One Supplier has it all. All From One Supplier fulfills and ships your order directly to you. So visit All From One Supplier today to start shopping, or call All From One Supplier at 718-551-3292 to handle all of your West Indian grocery needs. That's All From One Supplier, 718-551-3292. Free shipping, free deliveries, or curbside pickup from allfromonesupplier.com. Cannot travel due to COVID? Then treat yourself or your loved one with a gift. Purchase it online, then let Travelspan Shop and Ship take care of the rest. Travelspan is now offering a shop and ship program to Guyana and Trinidad. Cheap rates plus tracking and multiple offices in Georgetown, West Coast Demerara, and Berbice to take care of your package. Treat yourself and ship your Christmas gifts early this year. In Guyana, 227-1701, and in New York, call 347-238-2201. That's 227-1701. And in New York, 347-238-2201. Let Travelspan and Globespan take care of your online shopping and shipping. Globespan 24x7 continues its efforts to serve the communities. The platform provides for all sides to air their views and discuss solutions. Viewers in Guyana and across the world are participating in these discussions. Globespan's platform offers Guyanese an opportunity to express their concerns and discuss solutions in the political realm, thereby addressing the polarized situation. Discussions also include social ills, such as alcoholism, domestic violence, and suicides, that have been plaguing the people. The Globespan 24x7 platform connects the diaspora and the world with Guyana. So become a supporter of Globespan 24x7 today by clicking the badge icon on the lower right side of your screen. For only $10 a month, you will be a supporter of Globespan 24x7 initiative and have a badge displayed on your Facebook profile. Help us to continue to serve the communities.
Welcome back. Thank you, Minister Benn, for staying on with us. And we want to thank our audience. And of course, to Devin for being our specialist. Minister, we have some pictures. I know Devin have it. They were derelict on the parapets on our streets. Every day, government ministers would pass, police officers would pass, commanders of the force would pass. I mean, Minister, even you will pass. And these are traffic hazards, and apparently nothing is done about it. Here we have also the farmers. The last PP government, they spent millions and millions of dollars set up drying floors for farmers, yet the farmers use the road to dry their paddy. This is really, really, a lot of accident can be caused by this. What will your ministry do, Minister, to take away this derelict from the street and to stop our farmers from drying their paddy on our streets?
Well, let me say that First off, I understand the issue of the derelicts. We are just recently looking in the ministry to incorporate a utility crew, which involves persons who are in this stray catching crew to help to remove derelicts from the roadside. So that is an issue we are working at the moment. There was a hope that the areas of the local authority areas, the NDCs, that there would have been more involvement in dealing with this problem. But as I would say, government and authority fell away for close to 2 years in Guyana. Now, with the issue of the drying of paddy on the roadsides, I'm somehow offended at the assertion this brings up. The amount of paddy produced in our rice growing areas cannot be handled by the what you call millions of dollars spent on drying floors. It's a simple measure. I have no difficulty, and I had no difficulty as Minister of Public Works with the roadways, a third of it or a quarter of it, with people traversing the areas to ensure that the rice crop came in. Agriculture and rice is Guyana's fundamental issue. And when the rice comes in at the times that it has to come in, it has to be dried to meet a certain moisture percentage for it to be properly processed in the mills. There is not sufficient drying floor that we could create to deal with that issue. If it is that I were driving up in the Alps or southern Germany and the cows were passing with bells on the road, I couldn't drive over the cows. The cows had to be allowed to go along the road, and I had to wait and pass on the one side to allow the cows to go home to be milked or whatever. And so it is in other countries. We perhaps don't have all the best investment in automated drying systems and all those things as yet. But until we reach that point, the roadways have to be used to bring in the rice crop. And I have no objection to that. We, each and every Guyanese has an interest in that rice crop. Whether I'm shying the rice, plowing the field, carrying the persons who or loading it up on the trucks, each and every Guyanese has an interest in bringing in that rice crop. And I will not allow how fast we have to pass by a section of the roadway which has to be used for the drying of rice. And rice is dried faster on a black top than on a brown or a gray top. So I have no difficulty with it given our present circumstances. And I hope that we understand why it's important that we dry rice to bring it into a standard where we could eat it properly and that it could go out to our international markets.
But Minister, if we look at our next door neighbor, Suriname, they don't have this problem. What Suriname did is that, as you rightly said, if you have more rice, more paddy to dry, let us set up more drying facility to dry the paddy. So you have these electronic system that will dry the paddy rather than going to the roadside.
Sir, Suriname does not have the level of rice production that Guyana has. And that it is mostly Guyanese who went over into Suriname in a difficult time to be able to establish their rice industry on a more solid footing. I did say that we did not have the investment which has to be made at a private level in respect of this issue. But I hold the view that until that comes onto stream in a way which will take all the rice off the road or the possibility of using the few areas we've made to dry the paddy and to take it off road. When that comes into place, I'll be happy. But until then, paddy has to be dried on the road, on a portion of the road, and we have to make accommodation for that.
Okay, Dr. Rose.
Yes, Minister Benn, I want to turn your attention now to congestion at Starbrook Market. We have all the minibuses pouring in, and the destination is Starbrook Market. Congestion there, you can't get past nobody there. How you intend to solve that congestion problem? And I think I have a solution for you when you finish your answer.
Well, you better give me your solution first so I could comment on it. But I would say, yes, I've walked around the markets 3 times since I came, and I did have, I thought, some partial successes with this matter previously as Minister of Public Works. We've gone out again and we've had meetings with minibus operators and with some vendors in terms of reducing the congestion. It is true that all the routes come to that main area. The greatest difficulty otherwise, other than the congestion, is the crime or associated crime. We have identified and spoken with the routes about putting in properly a first in, first out system and stopping the hot plate buses. We haven't gotten it right yet, and we might not get it right in time for the Christmas season. The crime would be the more important issue. We have looked again and started a discussion about alternate areas for certain routes, but this has to come out as a result of discussions with the route associations and to get their acceptance and to make sure that the logistics and that we get it right, and also that we don't transfer the Starbrook market problems elsewhere. So that's where we are at the moment. Let me say that we had an initiative, as it were, some years ago to bring in larger buses, but that has its issues with respect to displacing the current private operators and making life difficult for them otherwise. So there's some other issues related, but we are taking a look at other parking areas with respect to minibus routes and the transfer of persons, and also for moving the, as much as possible, school children who do not necessarily have to traverse that area from that area in terms of a system.
Mr. Benn, I think I have a very, very simple solution, but in Guyana terms, it will not work because now this happened in Turkey where they had congestion with buses. So what they did, they sparse the buses out. Let's say those come from the East Coast, quarantine the East Coast all the way. You've established a bus depot somewhere like where the old Transport and Harbors Department is in Lamaha Street, someplace up there.
That is what I was referring to when I said of having the buses come to alternate places.
I understand. And those going to the east, to the south from Veld Lodge and those places, maybe put them somewhere in Durban Park. And this means that you leave Starbrook Market only for the buses going to East Bank and the West Bank. East Bank of the Mara, West Bank and West Coast of the Mara. But what you'll have to do in that case, if those buses coming in and they stop at different locations, the pedestrians will have, or the clients will have to pay taxi to get to Starbrook Market. In this case, to avoid that cost, the government should base on some of the cost of this by having buses established. Buses can hold at least about 20, 25 people. Passengers going to the East Coast, they load up in this bus, you take them to the old railway station on Lamar Street. Those going to the south and those places, you take them to some part, Durban Park, lodges, and that's what you do. The government should have buses, at least about 6, 8 buses to transport the people out rather than to bring them in and to transport them out rather than paying extra cost. And that's a simple solution. It happened in Turkey.
As simple as it sounds, we have traffic management studies at the Ministry of Public Works, which looked at these issues. I would say again that certain issues were not acted upon. And as I said before, we are relooking at this problematic. Whether the man pays directly out of his pocket or the government pays, it's the man paying. So the traffic management and engineering studies would again have to knock the dust off of their studies and take a relook at it in respect of this matter.
Now, let me turn to another question quickly. The Haitians and deportation. I know the Chief Justice stopped the deportation, but why is Guyana treating the Haitians like that?
I am not aware that the Guyana is treating Haitians in any form.
Deporting them.
I'm resenting the inference in your question. You may know that we have deported other persons and that we have just recently have had a particular issue with respect to the Haitians in respect of people smuggling and illegal entry. And that is what it is about. It doesn't have to do with the Haitians of themselves. It has to do with anybody who's involved in those practices. We'll see what comes out of it just now at the courts, and so I wouldn't want to comment any further. But I would say that in less than 3 years, we can't account for 33,000 Haitians and others. And unfortunately, maybe, given the nuances or suggestions in your questions, it happened to be Haitians. But there are others. And what we are going to do is to bring an end to people smuggling through Guyana. That is what our laws require us to do. And we will also end the corruption at the level of the immigration with respect to this matter and other places. So let's remove the Haitians out of it.
I just want to make a comment, Minister Benn, just in case that we forgot. Guyanese during the hard times left Guyana in droves, thousands. I got the numbers, but I'm not going to belabor you with them here. And to the Caribbean, Canada, United States. And I think they were welcome in most cases. Or there were exceptions where those who went there and commit crimes probably were put in jail and deported after. So can we extend a helping hand to people, Venezuelans who are struggling and Haitians who are struggling?
I am not aware that we are much better off than Haitians. Guyana was being accorded at the lowest level in the Western Hemisphere along with Haiti. It could be, of course, that they are slightly worse off than we are. But I am telling you, sir, that there is existing organized people smuggling rings in Guyana, smuggling various classes of persons, and it cannot continue because it's corrupting everybody and everything up and down the line. I will not sit here as a minister with the responsibility which the law gives me for these issues and have it continue. You may want to do so when you become a minister, perhaps, but I will not sit here and do so. It doesn't have to be here. It could be any person. It doesn't have to be any Haitians or anybody. And the suggestion that that is being made that this thing is discriminatory or racist and all of those things, I resent it. So the helping hand I have to give at the moment is in respect of making sure that our police and other forces are not completely corrupted. Whether it has to do with people smuggling, drugs, or all other issues.
Charles.
All right. Minister, we know we come to program time now, but I want to ask you one question before we bring the program to an end. The death of the teenagers in Berbice, when will we have some definitive answers as to who the real killers were?
Of course, I cannot speak to any definite date or anything. The police are investigating this matter along with international help. And when the results are in, they will be in. But we are anticipating that this thing will be wrapped up. So we need to have patience, given the political and other ramifications or sensitivities related to this matter. It has to be, and it is being carefully done, because we don't want to return to a situation where persons are encouraged to attack fellow Guyanese citizens as a result of this situation. The events which unfolded after the deaths are highly unfortunate, should not have occurred. And so the investigators are carefully working through this, and we will get an answer.
But Minister, shouldn't the police give a more frequent update when new information becomes available, so at least the populace know exactly what is going on without giving any sensitive information to the public?
No, the police don't have to do that. The police are proceeding in the only way which it can proceed at this moment. And the update is that the investigations are being proceeded with diligently.
Okay. Well, Minister,
we have a situation in the country where anything the police say or do, or the government say or do, is given various colorations and spins, usually of a negative kind, and which creates more anxieties and upsets in the society, and then we get at each other's throats. So,
Mr. Benn, quickly, go ahead. Go ahead. Mr. Benn, quickly, I'm a person who likes to see changes. And I'm going back now quickly to tell you about the restructuring of the police force. Now, in Region 4, how many police commanders are there? I think 2 or 3?
I think there are 3, but are you asking me a question or?
No. Okay, let me put it to you. Now, my change is this: we have 10 regions. Why don't we have 10 police commanders for those 10 regions, and then we give them sub-commanders or assistant commanders to help them along those regions? And that one commander is responsible and accountable for everything that happened in his or her region.
Sir,
that's restructuring I would like to see. That's the change I would like to see in the police force.
All right, sir. I would only say I can't take responsibility for those changes as it is at the moment, though I am responsible otherwise for holding it at the moment. I am aware that in other jurisdictions, we're in a fairly limited area. The population is so large that you have several different police precincts or departments or whatever for a large geographic area or a county. So you might have New York City Police, but you have police in areas for the general New York state and for each city. So I don't think we could compare the two things simply like that. It is a fact that the Region 4 area is the most densely populated, and it is the one which has the most crime, perhaps naturally as a result. So I am not going to get into a discussion as to the merits or demerits of the way what has been done is done, but we are looking at these things and there's much to look at the moment. So we want to focus on the improvements overall and to encourage our officers, policemen and women, and our civil servants or ministry workers overall, along with the government ministries, to work with us to bring about improvements, and not to go out and create an upset at the moment in respect of what has been inherited.
Minister, we want to thank you so much for being with us this evening. I think you have laid out for us a pathway to bring some sanity back to the security sector in Guyana. We want to wish you all the best. And we hope that, as you said, in 2 to 3 years' time, you're hoping to get all these things that you have in mind in place. And knowing Guyana, it's a difficult environment to change. Hard habits are very difficult to change. So you have a heavy task on your hand, and we just want to wish you all the best and hope that the people of Guyana will be secured in their homes and on the streets and anywhere they go, because the elements that is bent on destruction will be brought to justice, and hopefully they change so we do not have this problem again. So, Minister, we want to thank you so much for spending your evening with us, and we look forward sometime in the future for you to be back on our program again.
Well, thank you so much. In 3 years' time, hopefully.
Now, we want you to come up before then, so not 3 years.
Minister Benn, I must thank you for accepting the invitation and for your candid answers. There's nothing better than candid answers. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen, so much for our engagement. And I hope we can be on better grounds, much, much better grounds the next time we meet and speak in this forum.
No, as Dr. Rose said, Minister, you're very candid, and I think your approach, the way you've addressed our issue tonight, I think Guyana can be assured that, in not too far in the future, that our citizens will be safe. And I think you will do it. So all the best to you, sir.
Thank you all. Good night.
Thanks. Thanks again. Good night. Good night.